This is about the restoration process of an historic Mudhouse in Saudi Arabia belonging to Prince Sultan bin Salman. It used to be a farmhouse for the late King Faisal bin Abdulaziz. We had an Egyptian professor called Professor Saleh Lameh, who helped us with the technical advice and designs and everything for this project. Professor Lameh is also the architect who did the restoration of the Hala Sultan Mosque in Larnaca. And an old man, very old man, Abdullah bin Hamid, has also been involved as a hands-on man who has been working on mud restoration all his life. The building has been visited by plenty of dignitaries, including starting with Prince Charles. He was one of the first ones who visited the site. Then Chirac and plenty more other people, dignitaries, has been visiting this. Prince Charles has been a regular visitor to this building, and he did the foreword for the second edition of the book. This is the foreword that he added to the. And in this photo, you can see, I can't seem to, just 1 second. I have to do this. I have to close you, all of you, okay. Okay, now this is one of the photos in the introduction of the second edition of the book, where it is showing me, telling people off. This is a recent photo, actually, just to show you how the building looks like from outside. It was taken in 2018 when I visited for another new book publication on this one. The gentleman on the left is Bin Hamid, the old man, and then Professor Lameh on the left, and then Professor Lameh with another Professor Abdul Wahid al-Wakil, also involved in the process. This is a photo before we started the restoration. You can see my hair all black at the time. And this is the team that we used mainly for the building works. They are all Pakistanis. This is about myself. I'm a civil engineer. I was involved with a lot of heavy civil engineering and projects and royal palaces and some hotel construction, but I never did mud houses before. So it was all completely new to me. This is the aerial view of the farm. It is shown the farm, which is at the joint of two wadis in the Ria area, and it's all mainly palm trees. This was from an earlier restoration attempt that was not very successful. So when we started, it looked like this, the building. This is how, before we started. The one on the left is a well, water well. And this was the existing plan of the Mudhouse before we started in 1994. And these were also Professor Lameh's hand-drawn views of the Mudhouse before we started restoration, an isometric view, another bird's eye view, and the plans that he produced for us to implement. Okay, this is one of the big rooms called Diwania. It has 6-meter high ceilings. I mean, I will show some cross sections later on. In the middle, there are stone columns, and there is a tea-making facility at the corner. It's pretty long, about 17 meters. This is the cross section. You can see the column in the center, and there are high-level windows only, so that the woman cannot see anybody inside. This is a dining room, cross-section ceiling. I will go quickly through these details, and these are the elevations they produced before we started the work. You can see very small windows from outside. The Mudhouses are supposed to be closed from outside with limited openings and to keep the temperature under control. And of course, there is a courtyard in the center. Diwania you can see on the bottom, the entrance, main entrance going into the courtyard, and then there are 2 bedrooms on the right, and then sitting dining room on the left, kitchen, and family sitting room, etc. This is the mosque. There is a mosque next to the Mudhouse, and originally it was not aligned properly, so we had to demolish and rebuild it with a correct alignment facing Mecca. This is the site plan of the Mudhouse, mosque, and well all together as a plan. What is a Mudhouse? A Mudhouse is basically a building which is made of materials coming out of earth: mud, wood, stone, straws, palm leaves, water, all almost available everywhere. Of course, here we use palm leaves. You will see some of the details that I will show later on. But in Cyprus, they use kamush, for instance. So there are similar materials, but mainly it's mud, wood, and stone. We did a lot of trials and errors at the moment. As you can see, we even wanted to add hydraulic lime as recommended by Professor Lame initially. But subsequently, all of our trials proved not to be worth trying, and we had to go back to the traditional way of doing without any additional things. We had to do a lot of testing of soil samples. I will show you some of the tests that we did. And these are all the communications that I used to make with Professor Lame's office and providing him with all the thing. One of the interesting tests we also did was called X-ray diffraction report that I'm sure none of you probably heard about this before. It's supposed to detect the presence of attapulgite and kaolinite. So particularly kaolinite is considered as particularly good, which is used for Chinaware actually. Outhaibat test limits, chemical analysis. So these are all tests that we did. Okay, termite protection. One of the other things that is important for mud buildings is to protect them against termite attacks. The building is vulnerable to termite attacks. And for this, we had to find some chemicals to treat hay and the mud. And the mud was actually the surface application. When selecting this material, we had to find the right material with the least toxic characteristics. And you can see what they call LD50, which means lethal dose, which kills 50% of rats. And then there is a range of, if it is above 5,000 milligrams, it's non-toxic, etc. You can see the list about the toxicity. This is the Divania wall originally, before we started the restoration. You can see it's all attacked by the termites. This is what happens with the termite infestation. These are some, what we did with the selection of the treatment material. Now we come to the main process. This is, I think, the important bit from here on. How, of course, hay, we had to bring in bales and then cut them and then chop them in pieces. And then we treated them with the selected chemical against termite attacks. And this is the manual mixing of mud. We started with manual mixing of mud, which takes around 2 weeks for fermentation to take place. Of course, the mix mainly consists of a suitable soil, which must have certain percentage of sand, clay, and coarse materials. Chopped straw is added 50 kilogram per meter cube for normal brick making, and for the plastering, etc., 100 kilogram per meter cube. So you can see the photos. I mean, we started with manual mixing first, but then just to push the progress, we use machines to mix bulk in bulk. You can see here the color changing of the mud into a gray color. This shows that it's starting to become fermented. So we had to bake. You can see on the left here how we start mixing, putting the mud and put water and then mix them with the equipment, and then individuals taking them. This is how the mud bricks are made. We made forms which are trapezoidal. So basically, they put the form on the floor and they fill it with mud and then just press on a little bit and then pull it up and then keep it there for a couple of days and then turn them upright and then stack them like this so that it can provide some ventilation in between. This is a basic testing of mud bricks. for a mud brick to be of good use, you can put into the bucket of water and wait for it to dissolve. If it doesn't dissolve completely after 17 minutes, it's good. And you can see here, the one on the bottom is actually 24 minutes. Testing mud bricks. We had to do a lot of tests on the mud bricks. And at the end of the day, we managed to get between 45 and 50 kilogram per centimeter square strength of the bricks against the old mud bricks, which only tested and provided between 15 and 20 kilogram per centimeter cube. These are all the different tests that we did on the old bricks. And these are the testing the new mud bricks. Foundation consolidation. We had to consolidate the existing foundations because they didn't have proper foundations. So we had to go through a lot of studies and then sketches and calculations and everything provided by Professor Lamé. And we had to do the underpinning. This is a process of underpinning the mud walls initially. And for the external walls, these are the sketches that we had, and you can see how we started to. This is the column foundations. Columns are stone drums put on top of each other. And for them, they didn't have proper foundation, so we had to dig and then cast concrete. You can see on the right hand exactly how we did them. This is another, these are ties, wooden ties to tie at the corner of the walls, which is important against the possible earthquake effects. So these are the stone drums that we are being prepared for new columns. New wall foundations. This is a sketch that I made actually, what we decided to do at the end, using mainly stones instead of mud bricks for consolidation of the mud walls. All stones used. What happened during the process, we started first to try and keep some of the walls, but then suddenly one of the big walls of the Divania collapsed. So after the collapse of the old wall, we decided to change all the walls and build them new. But before then, we had already done some of the ceilings. So you will see that we had to prop up the ceilings. This photo showed the main Divania wall, which was a 6 meter high ceiling. The actual walls are more than 6, but about 6 meter and 6.5 meter high. And this is the process that we adapted. You can see how the new walls are being constructed. For already, we already had some lintels built, so we had to protect them and prop them up before continuing with the installation. This is just a view of roof parapets. You can see on the right, the view from the end of the ravine area of the building looked. So these are all some photos. Okay, so this is how the ceiling is constructed. This was initially proposed by Professor Lamé using a traditional concrete on top with DPC membrane, etc., and polythene sheeting, as you can see the sketches and cross sections. But what happened after we started to build one of the roofs, Prince Sultan came, and when he saw that we are using concrete and all these DPC membranes, etc., he said, no, I don't want that. I want the traditional way. So this is what we actually did, and we demolished what we had built. And this is the actual as-built details, which is basically, you can see the stone columns, and then on top of the stone columns, there are bigger, like a capital to support the girders and of course the joists across, all the same wood called athel, which is widely available around Riyadh. So above the girders, we have the joists, and then on top of the joists, we have palm fronds, which is plentifully available in the farm. So palm fronds are stripped of their palm leaves, and then I will show you some photos how they are tied together. On top of the palm fronds, we have palm leaves, which are made like a hasir, and above that is mud mix. This is another, the dining room is another area where the ceiling is high. Okay, this is how we had to prepare the girders and joists and also the water spouts. It was a big operation, actually. We had to go and find some farms and agree with them to cut the trees and then bring them to our work. And of course, they had to treat the wood also against termite attacks. So we built like a pond and then put them in before we use them. You can see how the building, the roofs are being constructed. And on the left, you needed 4 guys to carry some of the heavy girders. So it is a very, very dense wood. We use some white cement on top of the columns. And these are the gargoyles, which are the water spouts. They're about 70 centimeter long, sticking out of the mud walls. Mud buildings, what is important against the water is to have the proper slopes and enough gargoyles to let the water run out. And of course, for the gargoyles, we use the same athel wood, mainly cut half and then just formed like a U. And then we had to fix them with cross timber members in the wall. It is important to put this properly and secure it properly so that it doesn't lead to some damages later on. Okay, this is how the palm fronds, all from the trees available in the farm. They were cut and then the leaves were stripped off, and this is how we tied them on top of the girders and the joists. And as a team, they used to work as a team. Of course, the front on one side is thicker and on the other edge is thinner. So they had to put one in one direction, the other one in the other direction, so that there is no gap in between. This is from the palm leaves. We made on site like carpets. You can see on the top right, you can see it becomes like a carpet. So these are made like a carpet and put on top of the palm fronds before mud is being applied, just poured. These are the mud pouring on top of the roof. And then with their feet going, and then this is the bin Hamid. I mean, he knows all about the work. On the left, you can see the color of the mud as it being applied, which is gray, but later on it turns and becomes normal mud color after a while. These are some of the details of the gargoyles that we had. And what is important is to secure and avoid any deterioration near the gargoyle entrances, because most of the old mud houses become damaged near the gargoyles. And you can see some of the mud houses standing for ages, but around the gargoyle, you can see it's all demolished because of the rainwater running down. So you can see the gargoyle entrances. They are visible on the roof where you can see some white cement. This is another. Mud plastering. So on the dining room, we had to use a very heavy girder. So we needed to put some stone barriers or the girders to sit on. So you can see some plastering. We had 3 codes of plastering. The one on the left is the second code of plastering. And you can see on the right, the final code, how they look. These photos show after the first rain, what happened to the parapet surfaces. Some damage happened, but they can easily be repaired. So these are some of the photos of the building finished, after it is finished. These are the doors and windows. The doors and windows are all done by, again, with the same wood, Outhaibat wood. And everything is traditionally done. We didn't use any up-to-date materials. Even the door locks are made from the same wood, just sliding and slotting in. And this is the man, Mr. Mosnad, who passed away. I found him somewhere in north of Saudi Arabia by some luck in a way. I mean, and then he did all our doors and windows. And after the doors and windows are installed, they are decorated with traditional dyes. And the bin Hamid is an expert in all these decorations. He did all our decorations. And on the, you can see the finished decorations. The one on the left here is the main entrance door, which is roughly 3 meters by 3 meters high. And the one on the right is a single door with lock and key, as you can see. I'm not sure whether you can see the actual key itself hanging down near the lock. This is again bin Hamid doing the decoration and Prince Sultan watching over him, watching what he's doing. On the right, there's some window shutters. Finishes and decorations. The floors of the Mudhouse were finished in local stone, which we collected within the farm, because the farm has high ground also, which we call mountain. So we could get a lot of stones, and then with the stones, they were prepared, and all the floors were covered with the stones. The columns were plastered with white cement sand rendering, and finished with gypsum. All mud walls were covered with gypsum plastering. You will see how they are finished later on. And we had these tea making places, which are called bujar also. They were all gypsum decorations. These are the stones of the staircase going up to the roof, how they were prepared, and after they are installed, they are pretty heavy pieces. This is how the stone floor paving in the courtyard. Bin Hamid doing his decoration work. These are all the gypsum decorations on the wall, and then he carved them, and then he painted them. While working. These are the niches, all in gypsum decorated wall panels. Again, I put this here on the left, these are all different decorations. Okay, of course, this is a Mudhouse, but of course, Prince Sultan wanted modern finishes. So we had to make a solution how to apply finishes, proper finishes, like tiling the walls and walls in particular in the bathrooms. So we used some geotextile materials to prepare the surfaces before we could apply the finishes. And we couldn't use any metal because metal can corrode easily. Fireplaces. These are some fireplaces. I have 9 minutes left, so I'm going to be a bit quicker now, just to show you the finishes. This is how the fireplaces are operating. These are the tops of the fireplaces for the chimney. These are some of the light fittings that we, mosque planned by CIA. This is the mosque before it was redecorated, and then this is how it is at the end. And these are some of the finishes, after it is finished, how it looks inside and outside. And the gardens. This was a 3D view of the main Mudhouse that I prepared at the end, just to show the overall view of how we finished it. Flooding, I mean, when it rains, it really floods. This is what happened in 1996. Some of the flooding in front of all the farm area, it was all flooded. You can see the rainwater falling down from the mountain areas of the farm. That's it.
Thank you very much, Kubilay Bey.
Yes, thank you very much, Kubilay.
Thank you, Kubilay. Very
And I rushed it. I rushed it. I rushed it. Yeah, I rushed it çünkü and it's only first part of it. So I'm sorry that I couldn't go on a lot of details.
Do you mind if we ask 1 or 2 questions, Kubilay?
Not at all.
Okay, is there anybody who wants to ask a question?
I just want to say something.
Yes.
It was a very interesting presentation. I think it's related to what we do in Cyprus as well. Because I remember when I was a little boy, in our village, for example, we only had 2 types of houses. One was either using stone, we used to call it Dohnil stone, or most of the houses were built similar to this. So a lot of houses are built with kerpiç, yeah, mud houses. I mean, even in Lefkoşa now we got houses. This is obviously today's subject as well, being sustainable and energy efficient. I mean, the first step always on energy is to be able to use local materials and obviously build the building. If you're doing a BREEAM, you get a lot of points out of that. And I think this is the way probably the whole world is looking to develop, yeah.
It's sustainable. It's a sustainable
Yeah, it is
development.
sustainable.
But will it work in England, for example?
Well, in England,
You will be surprised. You will be surprised that there are some what they call cop houses in Cornwall,
Yeah.
etc. But they have thatched roofs. They are made from mud. The walls are made from mud, stone. I think about 1 meter high stone.
Because it rains a lot in this country.
Above that is all mud walls with thatched roof. So in Germany also, it is widely used. I attended a conference in Germany about this. They are very much into it at the moment. France also.
Okay.
And of course, in America, Arizona and other certain parts of it. In United States, in America, they call it adobe buildings.
I mean, energy saving, sorry.
Can I just ask about building?
The energy saving, of course, sorry, did I jump in?
Carry on.
What I'm saying is when I did my master's, yeah, energy saving, if you want to be sustainable, you have to use local materials. That is the first step. If you're buying fruit, for example, melons, and you bring it from Argentina, obviously that's a carbon to the whole world, yeah? So you got to grow local foods and like building as well, same thing. So that's always the first step. So this is obviously it's the right direction. That's what I was saying. Sorry.
You are still recording, Mehmet.
I jumped in.
You are still recording, Mehmet?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to go up to the YouTube.
I want to ask about the actual farmhouse building. You said that one of the walls of the Divania had collapsed while you were storing it, so you had to rebuild it altogether. Well, how much of the actual old building was there, or did you use it completely new? Did you build the whole thing completely new?
First, we started with renovating and keeping most of the walls, but after this collapse, we changed all the walls. We built all the walls from new mud walls. So everything has been new, and Prince Sultan is living in that house at the moment, has been living in that house. And he did some changes later on and made it more usable.
I saw a photograph of a brand new bath, the corner of it, so that doesn't fit into the old building. So
no, it's
the image of the old building, it doesn't fit. You've got new things.
New things, of course, it has all the new amenities in it. Yeah. And we also have an underground pump room, because to serve the water and everything that I didn't have time to explain all these things. Of course, we had all the modern modcoms within
Right.
a traditional building.
Mhm.
So the intention was to demonstrate that you can build a house traditionally, because what you have done is not exactly what was used originally. Because you've tested certain materials, you improved it, and that sort of thing.
Correct. I mean, only in the bathrooms, for instance, we had to apply finishes, proper finishes. So we had to adapt to the new
Improvise.
Well,
and
probably
Improvise
traditionally,
is the right
requirements.
word.
new requirements. Correct.
You
probably
improvise, I think.
traditionally,
But the basic
people who did
structure,
that knew exactly, they were experts, so they knew exactly what what was the requirement, rather than you going and testing everything and finding out what's the best. They probably knew all that anyway.
of course, of course.
On the stone columns, what material did you use to join them together?
White sand cement, white cement and sand mixture, which was not traditional.
Cheating.
It's a bit cheating, yeah.
It's
So-
interesting that
We couldn't take any risk with as far as the security safety is concerned. So we did certain
Yeah.
steps.
termite is an interesting one.
Yes.
Obviously they have a termite problem. Nowadays, we also have that in Cyprus. Apparently, the timber that they've been importing from China brought termites
Oof.
into Cyprus. And I had a termite attack on my building in Cyprus. It was noticed by my daughter when she was visiting. And we looked into how they came into the building. There are now experts in Cyprus who can treat these things. And they came in, they were in the ground outside. They found a little hole through the concrete wall, retaining wall, through the natural cavity of the concrete. They found a way into the garage underneath, and they went up through another hole into the bathroom where there was some dampness in the timber. And they luckily we noticed it early enough. They were concentrated just in one area of the door frame. They totally destroyed the frame, in fact. We had to redo it. And they were treated. Hopefully they'll not come back in. But
We've got less than 1 minute. So
Yes.
I just want to say thank you very much, Kubilay.